Hey all, here at OS Reviews. Today we're taking a closer look at the BingoFit Hali. This is an ultra affordable smartwatch that I've seen sell for around $10. What makes it interesting for the ultra affordable price is that it has an actual round display. So this might be the cheapest smartwatch in the world with a round screen. Well, technically it's a flat tire design reminiscent of the first generation's Moto 360. But typically round displays are more expensive to manufacture than the standard square screens that we see on budget smartwatches, and a lot of quote-unquote round screen smartwatches in the past for a budget price have just been a square screen with a thicker bezel. Here's an example of what usually happens at this price point. You see a photo, it looks like a round watch, the advertisements have the edges kind of blurred out or it looks black, but in reality, once the screen is turned on, you'll see that it's actually a square screen cut out in a circular body, which just doesn't look very attractive. But this thing is the real deal in terms of having very slim bezels, a true round screen on such an affordable price. With that being said, at the end of the day, this is still a budget smartwatch, so functions are fairly entry level, but still a steal, I'd say, for the price. It includes things like heart rate monitoring, in addition to step tracking and also sleep tracking. We'll also find a charging cable in the packaging that uses a magnetic pogo adapter. So taking a closer look at the design, again, it's really hard to imagine this thing is so cheap. The body is also constructed out of a aluminum metal material, so it feels pretty solid and hefty in the hand. On the rear, we have access to that aforementioned heart rate monitor, that's the charging port, and the bands themselves can also be swapped out if you want to change it for a different style in the future. There are no crown keys or buttons of any kind on the side, so it is very simple, and how you operate it is basically using a touch-sensitive key located on the flat tire region of the display. And we can tap on this basically to cycle through the various pages and menus of the watch. But it does mean that this isn't a full touchscreen. In other words, the top portion of the screen isn't fully touch-sensitive. You have to control it using this small dot, which is a little reminiscent of, say, a fitness tracker. And that's essentially what this is. This is still a very portable and compact smartwatch, so even if you have small wrists, this thing will fit on very well, both for women and for men alike. So really lightweight and comfortable. It doesn't even really feel like anything when you're wearing it. In terms of the various features now for the software, I can long hold on this main screen to change the watch face. There's a few built-in watch faces, but it's all you get. Unfortunately, there's no way to expand on it, but that's expected at this price point. So the companion app, for example, is not going to give you more options for additional styles. I can also change it to something like a digital one. The one interesting thing here, or rather a little unfortunate thing, is there's some inconsistency in terms of the 12 versus 24-hour format. So for some of the watch faces that you see here, they'll be displayed in 24 hours. So 23 o'clock is 11, for example, p.m. But if I choose a different interface, it actually shows it in the 12-hour format. So it seems like the 12 versus 24 hours is tied to the watch face as opposed to the operating system. You aren't able to go into a setting, for example, and change it between 12 or 24 hours. For example, this watch face here is one that sets in 24 hours. It's a very minor thing, but if you, again, prefer 12-hour format, it's not something that you can easily just change using the settings. Anyways, this one here also looks pretty good. It's a digital face that also shows number of steps. However, the rings on the outside here, which alludes to this curved round screen, is not actually dynamic or interactive. So the positioning here won't change relative to how many steps you've completed. It's just there for decorative purposes. The next function here is going to show number of steps, calories burned, and distance converted. The step count seems fairly accurate in my testing. I was not too far off from what I got from the Xiaomi Amazfit Bip in a side-by-side comparison earlier. The next function here is for sleep tracking. It also tracks light versus deep sleep. One thing to note here is it doesn't track sleep intelligently during the day, so only at nighttime. You don't have to press on any additional buttons, but if you take a nap, for example, during the afternoon, it's not going to count that as sleep. And overall, the accuracy seems in line with other models I've seen for around 50 to 100 bucks. It gives you a good rough estimation. Next here, for the heart rate monitoring, also is functional. It takes about 20 seconds to get a detection. A blood pressure function, which uses the same optical heart rate monitor to basically give you an estimation of blood pressure using a predefined algorithm. It's not true blood pressure, but it gets close enough as far as estimation is concerned. Finally, in terms of basic sports, you are able to track things like running, walking, indoor running, and various sessions. So you can begin a session, and during that entire thing, it will keep on tracking your heart rate fluctuations during the sport, in addition how long you've been performing it, as well as your average speed and cadence. Although this model doesn't have built-in GPS at this ridiculously low price, overall functionality I think is pretty good. Dimming the lights here is also a good opportunity to take a closer look at the true bezel sizes on the watch in terms of where the screen kind of cuts off from the edges. Even though it's not AMOLED, overall it looks pretty good. Other functions here include basic notifications. If you have it connected using Bluetooth to your phone, you'll be able to see text messages, social media notifications as they are pushed along, although you can't reply to those messages, you can see the subject line of them without too many problems. Under More, you can find some additional settings. Things like a basic stopwatch and countdown timer can be initiated, and it's pretty easy to interact with. After which point, it just kind of loops back onto this main watch face. So it's always in a cycle. Let's take a closer look at the companion app next. It's called KingFit, and it is a generic application which many budget smartwatches use and share, so there's not too many specialized functions here. It is just very straightforward, but at least it does sync your data over. We can also take a look at which points in time we were most active during the day, how many calories we've burned hour by hour. We can also take a look at our sleep in slightly more detail in terms of the duration, as well as the quality. The More option here to manually initiate a heart rate test. I can begin that, and you can see the monitor here will turn on, even though the watch face itself will be still showing the time. In similar fashion, we can jump into settings to take a look at things like what messages and notifications you want to allow to send through to the watch. Continuous heart rate tracking to be turned on during the day. If you turn it off, it will conserve on battery. Speaking of, it takes about an hour to charge, and a full charge lasted me about a week and a half before I needed to recharge it again. So it's going to be longer than a regular full-blown smartwatch running on Android Wear or the Apple Watch, since the functions are more limited. Otherwise, you can see in terms of the settings, it is pretty limited. You can change things like the screen on time. You can use it as a selfie key to take an image by tapping on that button to capture a shot using your phone's camera, but that's pretty much it. There's no ability for you to, again, change things like 12 versus 24-hour format. There's no ability for you to take a look at additional watch faces, so it's really as simple as it gets. Final point, I will mention that you can also use it when connected to your phone, and you can use your phone's GPS to track your route or location on the map. Of course, it does mean you have to bring along your mobile device, which is a little bit hefty and it's something extra, but again, to compensate for the lack of a built-in GPS chip on the watch itself, there is that secondary option using the software. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the BingoFit Hali. The functions are nothing revolutionary, but what I really like is the fact that it has such an elegant and clean design for a ridiculously low price. It definitely feels and looks much more expensive than the price would suggest. You can check out more details if you are interested in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the BingoFit Hali Budget Round Smartwatch.